These are from evolutionist textbooks. They say huge dinosaurs, which are 12 meters long, they started to have wings, and then they started to fly, which weigh tons, these huge dinosaurs. And these are from the evolutionist textbooks. We didn't do that. Evolutionists drew these illustrations. According to evolutionists, huge dinosaurs, which are 12 meters long, weighing tons, were chasing after the flies. Why would dinosaurs, huge dinosaurs, chase after the fly? They can't chase after the flies, first of all. Anyway, by chasing after the fly, trying to catch the flies with their front legs, they say, their front legs transformed into wings, and they started to fly, huge dinosaurs. This is such a silly, illogical, and unscientific claim. Now, I want you to pay attention. They tried to explain the origin of flight or birds by an object which is already flying, the insects, the flies. The flies, they have a perfect flying ability. The flies, there are flies which can beat their wings 1,000 times a second. This is 1 second. Every second, they can beat their wings 1,000 times a second. They can do sudden maneuvers. They can even land on the ceiling or on the wall. And we have the fossil record. We have the fossils of the flies. They appear all of a sudden and fully formed. And they can fly. So if you ask evolutionists, how did insects start to fly? No answer, complete silence, of course. There's no explanation. In 1 second, they can beat their wings 1,000 times. They have navigation system, they have gyroscope. Let's see what they say about the ancestors of sea mammals, the Darwinists. The sea mammals are dolphins and the huge whales, which are 30 meters long and weighs more than 60 tons. So let's see what Darwinists say about the origin of sea mammals. First, I want to talk about their claim. They say sea animals, the fish, stepped onto the land and transformed into land animals, Darwinists say. And then the land animals, the reptiles, they transformed into land mammals. And then the land mammals decided to go back to the sea, and they returned back to the sea and became sea mammals. And this is what they say. The bears, which decided to go into the sea to swim and to hunt, they transformed into huge whales, which are 30 meters long and weigh 60 tons, the bears. This is what Charles Darwin was the first one who said that. Let's see what he said in his book. Charles Darwin said, "I can see no difficulty." It is not difficult, he says. In a race of bears, being rendered by natural selection, more and more aquatic in their habits, they go to the sea more and more. With larger and larger mouths, they open their mouths and becomes larger and larger, their mouths, till a creature was produced as monstrous as a whale. But this was not liked by his followers and was removed from the following editions of his book. This is from the first edition of his book. And it was removed from the following editions because it is a very silly, non-scientific, illogical claim. So I want to show you real fossils. There are 350 million of them. Darwinists always remember that. Darwinists never show real fossils. You will never see real fossils shown by Darwinists. They will always show you some illustrations based on imagination. But because real fossils falsify Darwinism. And fossils are scientific facts. We can only know what kind of creatures lived in the past, what kind of living things lived in the past. And when the species appear, and if whether they are evolved or not, we can only know from the fossil record. So they never show fossil record, the fossils, real fossils. You know why? Because the fossils destroy Darwinism, 350 million of them. They show us species appear abruptly, complete, and perfectly formed. And these are real fossils. I give you some examples. If you go to the website harumyahya.com, you can see his creation atlas and thousands of pictures of real fossils. This is a flying fish, which is 95 million years old. And this is, excuse me, this is today's flying fish. You see millimetrically the same. So the flying fish was flying fish 95 million years ago, and it has never changed, thus never evolved. Allah created flying fish 95 million years ago as flying fish. And this is an insect which is 125 million years old. It is exactly the same on today's sample. No change for 125 million years means no evolution and creation by Allah, of course. Another fossil, 3 million years old, exactly the same on today's sample. Or a crocodile fossil that you see over here, which is 100 million years old. This crocodile fossil is 100 million years old. And this is today's crocodile. You see exactly the same. There is no change. For how long? 100 million years. Allah created crocodile as crocodile 100 million years ago. It has never changed. That means, of course, no evolution. And we have millions of animal fossils and we have millions of plant fossils. This is ginkgo tree leaf that you see over here, which is 250 million years old. You see, this is today's ginkgo leaf. You see any change here in between? Millimetrically the same. Why? Because there is no evolution. Allah created ginkgo tree leaf 250 million years ago, exactly the same of today's. There is no change. That means no evolution, of course. Sassafras leaf, 54 million years old. You see, this is today's sassafras leaf. Exactly the same, no change, means no evolution. Allah is the creator of all the living beings. We have 350 million of them. And the tale of evolution of man. You may see that kind of illustrations everywhere, in the newspapers, in so-called scientific magazines, even in the school books. But these are all imaginations done for propaganda purposes, to put the subconscious mind of the people that half man, half ape creatures lived in the past, but they never lived. So, according to the Darwinists, apes evolved into human beings over millions old period. But if you say apes, they get mad. They say common ancestor. You can say ape or tape or jape. But these are apes. Because they say, for example, Australopithecus is the ancestor of man. That's their claim. Australopithecus means southern ape. If you look at the fossils of Australopithecus, their skull fossils, they have very small skull volume, compatible with the chimpanzees, about 450 cc's. Their eyes are close to each other like all other monkeys. They have a very prominent jaw and sharp teeth like all other monkeys. And the angle of their semicircular canals in the inner ear, which control the balance, is exactly at the same angle with the monkeys, because they walk stoop forward and humans walk upright. The angle of our semicircular canals are completely different than the monkeys and the Australopithecus. And Australopithecus has long arms and short legs, like all other monkeys. And it has prominent eminences in the hands and in the feet to hold on to the branches. But our feet is very different. And we don't walk forward. The angle between our vertebra and the pelvic bone is completely different than the monkeys. So Australopithecus is a monkey. And this is also said by two world-famous Darwinist anatomists. Their names are, one is Sir Sally Zuckerman from United Kingdom, and the other one is Professor Charles Oxnard from United States. These two world-famous Darwinist anatomists, they are both Darwinists, they paid by British government for more than 15 years to study the fossils of Australopithecus to find out whether Australopithecus is a human or an ape, or something like between. You know what happened after 15 years? They came up with the conclusion, they said, sorry, Australopithecus is just an ape. It does not have anything to do with human beings. But you may wonder why it has taken 15 years. It would take only 15 seconds just looking at the Australopithecus fossil and human fossil, you will see immediately the difference. What they do is, Darwinists, there are more than 6,000 ape species lived throughout the history. More than 6,000 of them. Probably 6,500. Only 100 of them are alive, 120 of them are alive. So what they do is, they take the fossils of the extinct ape species, such as Australopithecus, and they put in an order from the smaller to larger one, and they claim to be the progress, that it's the order of the evolution. But this is very non-scientific, because that kind of creatures, they never did in the past. That kind of things happen in fairy tales. frogs, they transform into a prince in fairy tales. But if this is done in the name of the science, of course, we respond that to scientifically. And we know that kind of creatures, they never lived in the past. Allah created apes as apes, humans as humans. Humans have intellect. We are conscious beings. We can speak, we can talk, we can build cities, we can build civilizations, we can judge, we can be happy. And we can take the electron microscope and do research on our own bodies. Because we have souls. That is the major difference between apes and human beings. Apes are wild animals. They live in the forest. They jump from trees to trees. They mate, they eat, they have children, they die. And their offspring, their children, they live in the forest, they jump from trees to trees, they mate, they eat, they grow, and they die. They are wild animals. So apes existed in the history, humans existed in the history of life. There have been apes, you see apes, and they continue to exist. There have been humans, and they still exist. But there were never men like apes on the earth. And this is only done for propaganda purposes by the Darwinists. For example, this is a fake reconstruction. What they did over here, you see all the time in the TVs, on the newspapers, and in the scientific magazines. They took an orangutan and replaced its eyes with the human eyes to make it look like an orangutan, but looking like an ape, looking like a human being. So they want people to think half ape, half human. But this is a fake reconstruction. That kind of creature, they never lived in the past. And it is called reconstruction. What is reconstruction? Reconstruction means rebuilding. So this is the most famous Darwinist artist of the world. His name is John Gersh from the United States. So John Gersh, he goes to his lab and takes casts from his friends, living human beings. And he starts to play around, manipulate this cast. And at the end, he generates something like this. Half ape, half human. Lived in the past, was able to pose for a photograph. But this doesn't have any scientific value. This only reflects the imagination of the artist. You see, he's manipulating by his imagination only, not on scientific evidences. Because, you know, there are usually fractures of a skeleton, like fractures of a skull. Sometimes they have a piece of skull, piece of jaw, or piece of arm, or piece of leg. Even though you have the whole skeleton, you cannot estimate the soft tissues based on the skeletal evidence. You cannot estimate the lips, the ears, the eyes, the nose, and the body hair of the living beings based on the skeletal evidence, because soft tissues never leave any clues on the skeleton, on the bones. So these illustrations, drawings, are completely imagination. It does not have, they don't have any scientific value whatsoever. They only reflect the imagination of the artist and done for propaganda purposes.